All right. So we are recording. Do I have your permission to record?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so just for the people listening in, could you say who you are and what organization you're with and just a little bit about you?
Right. Okay. Well, my name is J.R. Myers, and I am the, um, I guess, founding chairman of the Life and Liberty Party. Currently, we just have ballot access in Arkansas, but we're working on expanding our reach. We're trying to build our um, nationwide network via social media right now. We don't have a lot of money to spend, but we represent people with the idea that there are a lot of pro-life libertarians that really don't sit well within the Libertarian Party. And there are a lot of pro-liberty constitutionalists that really don't fit well within the Constitution Party. And so we were thinking that perhaps a new home for those who belong to those groups or that group, and that's the Life and Liberty Party. So I'm also running for president to, in part, boost this, idea, promote it, and so I'm trying to appear. I was asked by um, the California American Independence Party to run on their primary ballot, so I intend on doing that next March. I've also been asked by the Constitution Party of Idaho to run on their ballot for president and to participate in debates and campaign in Idaho. I also ran in Idaho as vice presidential running mate of Scott Copeland for the Constitution Party in 2016. And then, so in Arkansas, so we need to get Arkansas organized, and then I hopefully can secure the nomination in Arkansas. So that's at least three states that I'm vying for at this point in time, maybe more. So I have a long history of political involvement with third parties. I do live in Montana. I'm from Montana. I served as chairman and other officers. I was secretary and treasurer and chairman of the Libertarian Party back in the 80s, kept that thing afloat. Um, then I became Reform Party chairman, and I also had been involved in the Republican Party at some point back in the early 80s. I was a precinct committee man. Later on in Flatty County, the Republican Party as well. But I moved in 2003 to Alaska and took a brief hiatus from politics. But in 2006, I believe, I finally got involved with the Alaskan Independence Party and then was district chairman and became vice chairman and almost became chairman of that party until it became apparent that that wasn't really where I belonged. And at that time, the Alaskan Independence Party was an affiliate or quasi-affiliate of the National Constitution Party. So I had been working with the Constitution Party, so I decided to found the Alaska Constitution Party, which still exists and is growing. We just passed 500 member mark as far as voter registration. So that's taken a while because it's been about 10 years, and we haven't had a lot of it's just very difficult with all the ballot access restrictions and the political APOC, it's called in Alaska. That's the financial reporting agency that all candidates and political committees and parties have to report to, and they have very strict regulations and very heavy fines, and so we kind of ran into a few obstacles with them, and we ended up settling out with them. But they initially were going to fine us over $30,000 for not for just checking the wrong box on a form, and so we ended up paying them basically the balance of our account which was $800 at the time. So, but that just further, emboldened me to speak out against the state apparatus and control and how they try to stifle all political dissent. And I do believe that the individual is the sovereign ultimately, and we form our communities, and we have our constitution, which is our compact with our government, which provides for a peaceful means of transfer of power. And I believe that part of that construct also allows for people to choose their own political destinies. So, in that regard, I am supporting your CalExit efforts, although I would temper that with the view that I think it should be done by either congressional or county districts, so that I don't believe that the entire state of California wants or needs to go. But that's just my opinion, and I think it would then have to be ratified by the Congress. So that's what I have to say about that. But I'm sure you have more to ask me.
Well, that's interesting because you are the second candidate who's put that requirement on it. David Weichel, who's running for Senate in South Carolina, said that if he was in the federal government, he would propose a vote for CalExit, and we were very pleased by that. He's the only candidate to take it that far. But he said that he wants the vote to be done by county or congressional district, that he thinks that people have the right to vote to stay with America, just as people have the right to vote to leave. So that's interesting to hear you echo those sentiments.
Yes, I agree with those sentiments. You're right. Mm-hmm.
Uh, so,
And I've always been of that opinion. But go ahead.
well, that tell me though, you've been in Alaska, you're in Montana.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Tell me which phrase you're more likely to hear from your neighbors. Boy, I love California. I love their safe places for LGBTQ and all the stuff they're doing for transgendered people and bathrooms, and I can't wait for them to push those laws on us. Or, those damn Californians, they're not even American anymore.
Yeah, I would say B would be more common,
What?
that type of sentiment.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
That you are the 15th conservative that we've talked to who said, "Yeah, maybe I don't feel that way," and that's fair. Some conservatives said, "Look, I don't feel that way," but well, how does your family and friends and everyone in the area? And they go, "Well, yeah, kind of, basically." There was one guy who said, I don't feel that way out of Arizona." He goes, "I love you guys. I don't agree with a lot that you do, but I think you're cool." And I go, "Well, how's the rest of Arizona feel?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, basically, yeah, they're fine with you." Um, but let me,
Well, I think you have to understand that there's been like a kind of refugee wave that's been happening for probably 20 or 30 years with the exodus of white middle class and upper class um, residents from California to the other adjoining western states, including Alaska too, and so that has changed the complex, demographics of the West, and so a lot of people are resentful. We appreciate some of the things, but not all of the things, because we question why would you leave where because you don't like it, but yet bring that culture with you, and then try to seek to impose it upon us. So I say, let the people go if they want to go, but leave those bad ways behind if that's or whatever.
be honest. We're not going to edit this. Well, say what you want. That's a commitment we've made.
Well, I mean, I don't want to be rude about it,
Don't
but I mean,
worry
I do
about
believe
that.
everyone has their choice, and that's all I'm saying. And I am just trying to echo the sentiment that people do speak.
So it seems like that conservative America or red states have been moved to be more okay with California leaving America the more they come into contact with Californians.
Well, I think that people don't agree with the values that are being promoted by the California establishment in power at this time, such as the open borders and all of the things that you mentioned. I think some of the things people can, try to comprehend and embrace, but not everything at once. And some things are absolutely antithetical to our constitutional framework, from my perspective anyway. And I know a lot of other people do agree with that. So, we feel in many ways, and I'll say we, if you want to put it as, and I don't even consider myself as a conservative per se, but that, we do want to uphold our citizenship, and we want to uphold our borders and our culture, and we want to be embracing of new immigrants, as long as they want to share in our country and building our country, and not try to transform it fundamentally against our foundational principles. That's all I would say.
That's fair. That's fair. Yes. You're not alone. We have a coalition of 13 states um, that are saying, that are all conservative. And then there's California that's very blue. But we basically come to the agreement that political discussion is getting bad. I mean, it's getting very aggressive right now. Uh, and people are worried.
Yeah.
And they would.
Well, yes.
So, I mean, do you agree that you've been in politics for a while? Does it seem
Mm-hmm.
worse than it's ever been?
Well, yes. I mean, I remember like when I was a child in the '60s, it seemed very tumultuous, but it was exciting. But it was more innocent. Now it's so sometimes feels so hopeless and chaotic and so dismal. And I'm a counselor. That's my day job, and I have to deal with depression and anxiety all the time. And that's fundamentally because people feel so hopeless, I would say, because they don't know the institutions that they've relied upon are like transforming or crumbling and being replaced by new modes of being, and people are struggling with how to, comprehend these changing realities. Yeah.
So you're a professional in the dealing with people who are upset
Well, yeah,
realm, and you're
of course.
saying that you see
Yeah.
a lot of this repercussion from the
Well, yeah.
devolvement of political discourse in America today.
Yes, people are very stressed out and depressed about it, what's happening, and fearful. Yes, and I agree. I don't want violence. I want peace, and I think that one of the genius part of the genius of our foundational documents, the Constitution, is peaceful political discourse and change, including and up to and through the right of secession. And I'm not threatened by that. I think if it's a fair process, just like Brexit, yay. Hopefully, it'll be resolved to everyone's satisfaction. But yes, debate it and work out the details. Don't just ignore the issue and gloss over things and hope everything works out, because of course it doesn't.
Huh. Huh. And so you feel that it would be appropriate to at least elevate the concept of
Well, yes.
peaceful divorce as an option.
Well, yes. I think that's part of the freedom of people. And I think the sovereignty of individuals in the state should be upheld. And if that's ultimately what transpires and as the best for everyone involved, then that's the way it goes. Hopefully it wouldn't happen that way, just as in Alaska, with the Alaskan Independence Party. It was, created as a secessionist party. I became, rose up in the ranks and became the vice chairman, but I was never an overt secessionist. I always advocated that people have the right to secede, but I never felt there was the right time for Alaska to secede for various reasons, including Russian aggression. But, but yes, I defend the right of the people if the time is right and the circumstances are right, and the popular verdict is such that seems to be the best course of action and the most peaceful course of action, then by all means, let's proceed, at least discussing it. There's nothing wrong in discussing it and elevating it to a higher level, because I think it is a national debate, California being the largest state, having the most electoral votes, and being most half the West Coast.
So let me jump into this because I am fascinated by this. Could you talk about the Alaska Independence Party? And you were a high-ranking officer in that, sir?
Right. I was the vice chairman, the second in charge, I guess you could say. I mean, as far as political parties.
Okay, of the entire
Yeah.
Alaska Independence Party. So could you walk me through what was the plan? Like why did Alaska want to do that?
Okay.
Without too much detail, like roughly what did they want to do,
Okay.
and how did they think they could pull it off?
Well, for one thing, they always stated that the Alaska Natives never were allowed an effective vote. They were effectively disenfranchised because of the English read and write and speak only laws. And many of them, English was their second language, so they were not able to comply. So most of the Alaska Natives were effectively disenfranchised. And secondly, most of the military personnel up there and their dependents were allowed to vote on the issue, and since they were actually officially residents and voted in other jurisdictions, they probably were not, should not have been allowed to cast their votes as far as in a statehood issue. And so there were four international options. I don't know if I'll get this right, but statehood was one of them, remaining as a territory, becoming a commonwealth, or becoming an independent nation. I think those are the four choices. And so they thought that the vote was flawed and illegal according to international law, and so they wanted another vote. And the founder of the party had gotten into contact with the mullahs of Iran, and they had agreed to bring it forth, the government of Iran, to the United Nations for consideration. And it was somewhere at that point, and that was back in the 70s, I think. I don't remember the exact year, but then the founder, he was found murdered near Fairbanks. And so, anyhow, that's kind of the brief history of the Alaskan Independence Party. They did elect a governor, who, a former Republican. He used that party to become governor. And they still are the third largest party in Alaska. And while the election laws are being tightened by the Democrats and Republicans to remove other dissenting voices and alternatives, such as the Libertarians and Greens and the Constitution Party, which all have been either kept off the ballot altogether or have now been thrown off the ballot, the Alaskan Independence Party remains the only one that has a secured ballot position, and so the only ones that offer a true alternative voice. Hopefully they'll become more active as they're the problem with many of the third parties, people get burnt out, and so the old guard truly does age out and die off. And so if they can't succeed in recruiting a new generation of leaders, then I don't know what's going to happen. But that's kind of the story in Alaska from my perspective. If you have any more questions, feel free.
I find that fascinating. So the Alaska independence theory was that, hey, you had this vote to join America, and
right.
a lot of the people that were here, that lived here in Alaska, didn't get a vote.
Right.
And because they weren't white, I imagine something to that order. And
right, they were Alaska Native people.
Yeah, and then you shipped in a lot of people who aren't Alaskan, and then go, hey, you're Alaskan, why don't you vote?
Yep, pretty much.
That sounds a lot like California, because California had a vote to become a state, and they call it Ascension Day, and they celebrate it, but they don't really talk about the history. What happened was a bunch of Americans came in illegally. They were illegal immigrants. They were not allowed to be here, and then they took over the place. I'm not making this up. This is the history at the time. And what they did was they say, okay, everybody who's not white doesn't get a vote. Maybe about 100 Mexicans got to do that. I'm half Mexican. But only the super wealthy, like the 1%. And then if you were African American or Asian or Latino or Native or whatever, you didn't get a vote. So a lot of people here didn't get a vote. And what they did was they built the Transcontinental Railroad because of a president called Lincoln, who did not want to fight a two-front secession war, who had heard in the 1850s that California wanted to secede and was worried about two provinces breaking away, and so he rushed through funding for a railroad to connect California in. Although he was passed away at that time, they flooded California with a bunch of people from America, and these people had been here a year, 2 years, 2.5 years tops, and they go, you're all Californians, all those people that have been here forever, you don't get a vote. And you people who we shipped in, you're going to hold the vote. Oh, a majority of you said you want to be America. There you go, fully legal. Is that similar to what you're saying the Alaska situation was?
Interesting. It sounds like kind of what you might even call an imperial colonial program.
What? This is America, land of the free, where everything's done correctly.
Well, let the truth speak for itself. Speak the truth to the power that is, and see if it can be changed because, a lot of truth has been suppressed. And yes, I do believe America is, has a lot of good qualities. But yes, there is a lot of ugly history, and the Alaskan experience and apparently the California experience is, part of that.
Huh.
And
Huh. So
yeah,
what was
I'm willing to say that.
that's why I love having these conversations because there is truth and it is not acknowledged in our quotes free marketplace of ideas. Texas
Well, that's
versus
because
right.
yeah, we have two parties, but it's really one party, and they control all dissent, and they divide and conquer, and so they have us thinking and demonizing one another that, oh, you're our enemy, you're against us, blah blah blah. But no, we share a lot in common, and if we can realize our commonalities, that can unite us to dismantle the existing power structure that's become corrupted.
Huh. You're the I've heard that a lot. I'm progressive, but I've talked to a lot of conservatives, and I can't tell you the number of conservatives who go, "Yeah, I'm conservative, but I really think both parties are together. It's just a game
Well, yeah,
to pull us apart."
it's a game. It's a sham. It's a false dichotomy.
The liberal media does not tell us that. They tell us all conservatives are super hardcore conservative, love Trump, love the
No,
party, and
no.
I never hear anything, any acknowledgement in the liberal press that, yeah, there's conservatives and yeah, they don't have the same opinions of you, but they're also just as distressed by this federal government, and they too feel
Well,
that
right,
their party doesn't represent them, and they also think the rich and powerful are running it. I don't ever hear that.
right. Well, that's because the so-called liberal press. There's nothing wrong with liberal. That word's been appropriated. It's really the state press anymore, and
Huh.
that's the truth. And that's
Huh.
exactly what the corporate press. It's a fascist system, corporate government partnership. So there
Hmm.
you have it. And they control the press, and the press is upholding their, elite system, and that's what we have. That's what we're facing.
Huh. Well, let me ask you.
I
So,
know.
what?
Surprising, huh?
It is. It is. I gotta tell you, we wanted to have conservatives say it's okay for California to go, and what's happened is a beautiful partnership. Because a lot of people have respected the fact that when we came to them and said, "Look, we're not trying to act like we're conservatives, we're left, but we think you have the right to live in a place that reflects your values." And to have a government that you elected in that do that, as long as we get that right for ourselves too. And I gotta tell you, it's been really easy to get conservatives to that cause because when I presented it that way, they go, "Yeah, that makes sense. I don't want to live there. I don't want your values, but I get that you like them, and I think you should be able to do that really far away from me. And I want to be able to have open carry, and I'd appreciate it if you don't come over here and tell me that I'm a horrible person."
Right. Exactly. That's right.
Huh.
And that's the original idea of the states to begin with. They were each supposed to be their own laboratories of democracy, as it were, and so that they could have various laws. And they didn't have a strong central federal government that was trying to dictate every aspect of our lives. And things have been really have degraded since the foundations, obviously. And the federal government's far too overreaching, and I can see why the people of California would want, just on those grounds alone, to disassociate themselves. But anyway,
Well, yeah, we're scared about losing our values, but I try to explain to other. There's a kind of a battle right now between Calex and the rest of California, where we're saying you can't say, "Oh my God, they better not take away our ability to have sanctuary cities and our ability to set our own greenhouse gas laws," and then in the same breath say, "I don't like that Georgia's having these anti-abortion laws, and I should go force them to do it." And I go, "Do you
right,
understand how that doesn't? You're you're being a
doesn't
hypocrite
confuse. Right,
like that."
that's right.
And Furthermore, besides being a hypocrite, you're creating a system where someone can force their way down you. I mean, when you're in power, we're going to go do this and we're going to do that and we're going to make them do X. And then what happens when you're not in power? You set this
Exactly.
establishment up. And now the monster comes to feed on your legs.
That's right. That's why we shouldn't have such a powerful monster to begin with, right? And government should be more local, not some beast over on the banks of the Potomac.
Yeah, I saw this. There was a LGBTQ cheerleading squad in a deep South town. And it was five guys, and they were as artistic and really out there about, hey, we are gay men and we want everybody to know, and we made our costumes and we talk and dance in a way that others may call feminine. Now, I watched that and I said, these guys are great. They'd fit in here. But they were interviewing them, and they're in rural Alabama, and they're going, how are you guys getting treated? And they go, not very well. And they were saying, we hope somebody comes here and changes the law in Alabama. And I was watching that and I go, I'm just going to tweet them and say, move. And I'll help you find a place here in California. And we'll go ahead and raise funds for you in California, because in California, what you're doing is fine. Nobody even bats an eye at that. But you're not going to change the Deep South.
No, not really. I mean, different areas have their different values, and I think that should be respected, not attempted to be, homogenized, per se.
Right, aggressively. There's a lot of California politicians who say, where California leads and America follows. And
I know, and guess what? America's tired of that mentality.
What? They don't love California politicians saying, we know better than you, we're going to push our values on you.
I know.
Even though you'll...
I know, it's hard to believe.
Wow.
Hard to believe, but no, we don't.
You don't think the conservatives will just eventually come around and say, thank you for forcing your will on us, California. I was silly, but I get it now, and I agree with you.
Well, it's not even conservatives. I mean, it's just people that, like, in Montana or Alaska, they're like, keep your California laws to yourselves. Let's do our own thing here.
Okay. So tell me, what was the party or movement's idea on how to become independent? What did they think in Alaska? What was their plan? What was their steps? How are they thinking to pull this off?
Well, they wanted to have a revote, so who knows how that would go at this time. But they wanted to revote. They wanted to bring it before the United Nations and say, hey, that vote was illegal. So actually, they wanted to invalidate the statehood to the United Nations, but I couldn't really support that.
So that was their plan, was to approach the UN. That vote's invalid. You need to cajole America to do another vote.
Under international supervision.
Right, under international. So that's why you would go to the UN. They would send international observers like they do to many countries and witness the vote and make sure that it's fair. And they were saying, hey, if you vote, we'll just have a fair vote and we'll see what happens. And I guess they were betting on a majority of Alaskans would choose independence.
Well, there's the four different, options, right?
Right. Statehood, territory status, independence, and I think you said Commonwealth?
Like a Commonwealth or something. I'm not sure if I got that one, but I think there's the previous territorial status, statehood, independence, or some kind of Commonwealth agreement like maybe Puerto Rico has.
Oh, okay. Well, let me flip it back to you. What questions do you have about the Cal-Exit movement? What have you heard? What have you seen? How do people view it in Montana?
Well, I haven't heard a lot about it from Montanans, other than the attitude about California laws trying to be imposed here and cultural values trying to usurp local values.
Yeah.
So people definitely in Montana and in the West and like in Alaska in general are more independent. So they're like, be a good neighbor, don't butt in, help, but let people live and let live, but don't impose or trespass.
Do you think the Alaska Independence Party could have been successful if their leader had lived? That he might have been able to pull it off, they might have been able to get to the UN, or somehow get that revote.
Yeah, his name was Joe Vogler, and he was. I never met him. I never knew him. I only knew Lynette Clark. She was his protege. She's the current, no, she was the previous chairman. Now Mark Cryson's chairman again. It looks like. Anyway, he was a pretty angry guy towards the U.S. I don't know, but he must have been fairly charismatic as well. So yeah, they probably would have gone to the United Nations. That's probably why they say he was assassinated. I don't know. That's a whole other mystery.
He was murdered somehow, but
they don't know. He was murdered. Some say it's assassination. Some say it's like a robbery attempt or something. I don't know.
Right.
Right. Who knows?
Yes.
Who knows? All I know is he died.
Robbery gone bad, right? Robbery gone bad, late at night, by himself.
Yeah. Okay. Like that.
Yeah. Never heard that before.
Yeah, right?
So, well, this has been pretty good. You've been very good with the answers and concise. Okay, tell people, if you would, how can they find you? What websites to go to? If you'd say your name again.
Right. I go by J.R. Myers, but my website is John Richard Myers, MYERS.com, JohnRichardMyers.com. That's my presidential candidate's website. And then the Life and Liberty Party website is just Life and Liberty Party, all spelled out, .com, lifeandlibertyparty.com. So you can find our information there. And we also have Facebook pages for all the states, and we're trying to get people to join those and help to build a grassroots network throughout the nation to, as I said, be a home for those who are pro-life, libertarian-minded people, or those who are pro-liberty constitutionalists, whatever you want to name yourselves. But, those who feel left out or underrepresented, represented or unrepresented, or just don't feel that the constitutional libertarian parties, constitutional parties are doing their jobs or have served them well. So, we're seeking to support those people, other independents that, stand on the Constitution. We believe the Constitution is the center of the polity. So we believe we're a centrist party, the Life and Liberty Party, because we're based on the centrist document, the social contract of the U.S. Constitution. So thank you for your interview, Marcus.
Oh, yeah. One last question. You are running for president under the Life and Liberty Party. You just explained it's a constitutionalist organization. Is that fair?
Yes.
And you are trying to, or what's the relationship with the third largest political party out here in CA? Could you tell folks a little bit about who that group is, what your relationship is with them?
The AIP?
Yeah, and that's the third largest party here in California, as I understand.
Yes, in California. Excuse me. Well, 4 years ago, in 2016, they invited me to run on their presidential primary ballot, which I did, and I didn't spend any money there or campaign, but I carried 3 counties in California for that. So then again, I received a call probably about a month ago from one of their officers who asked me if I wanted to participate in their primary in 2020, and I said, why not? So, I'm promoting life, which is not just anti-abortion, but it's anti-euthanasia, anti-assisted suicide. It's even beyond that. It's the ability of the sovereign individual to access alternative healthcare treatments and not to be forced into medical treatments against their will, including vaccinations. And also, definitely, I want to decriminalize the drugs and the war on drugs, and especially utilize, I believe, in cannabis-assisted therapy to help people that are struggling with other addictions and for different mood disorders or pain, chronic pain issues, things like that. Um, and global stewardship of the planet. We have to have a healthy ecosystem if we're going to promote life, right? We have to have healthy environments and healthy communities if we're going to sustain and affirm life in the young people. So I want to establish a life affirming culture. So again, it's not just the abortion stance; it's far larger than that. And again, government accountability, decentralization of power from the federal government to the states and to the communities, and ultimately to the sovereign individuals. And that's what I believe. That's why I'm running, because I don't think it's represented. These views are really being represented in a coherent way by any other candidates out there or any other parties.
And are you?
So basically, we're trying to create a new movement. Go ahead.
Are you the official 2020 candidate for the American Independence Party here in California?
No, not yet. I'm going to be vying for that. And, it's really a beauty pageant, the primary election. So ultimately, their central committee will make the choice of who their nominee is. Last election, it was Donald Trump,
Ooh.
who did not appear on the primary ballot.
Oh.
Who did not appear on the primary ballot. So I'm also against all the imperial use of the executive orders, the imperial presidency. So if I were to be elected, my first day in office, I'd be reviewing presidential executive orders and seeing what needed to be repealed. Anyway,
hey,
yeah, it's an interesting dynamic happening.
That's fascinating. I mean, if you become their nominee, please get a hold of me. I'd love to do another follow-up interview. Absolutely, especially because that's very important to California politics, and maybe we could work something out.
Well, I hope to be in California sometime in the spring or summer. So.
Oh, please look me up. Let's talk.
All right. Great.
And I was going to ask one more thing. The AIP, you're running for AIP. Oh, what were the counties that you won last time here in Cali?
Oh, goodness. They were in the south and the central. I can't think of the counties. I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with California that well, so I don't have the counties memorized.
If you could get me those names at any point, I will put them in the description on the video, because that will be of interest to people here. I will tell you what, that'll increase the amount of people who watch your interview. If you go, oh really, that county? Oh, I know that one. Okay, all right. Because what they're going to think is that's where you're going to have your greatest support when you win the nomination for 2020. I'm calling it. You're going to get the nomination from the AIP for California for 2020. You heard it here.
Thanks, Marcus.
Yeah. Well, I'll post this up and I'll send you some information, and I'll get you some information for the conference this weekend. We'd love to talk to you.
Okay.
And send me those counties, and we'll put it in the video whenever you get them.
Okay. Yeah, I can get those to you. That sounds good.
Thank you so much, JR. And I will talk to you on email very shortly.
Okay. Have a good night. Thanks, Marcus. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.